Good evening, and you're all very welcome along to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk channel. This is the Talk of the League podcast. My name is Matthew Smith, and I'm joined once again by Jamie McCoy. Jamie, how are you, my friend?
I'm keeping okay, Matt. Nice to see you as always, mate, on this Monday evening. Not a stressful day today, so it's nice to see you, and I can chill out with a cup of tea and talk a bit of football, mate. So happy days. How are you?
Exactly, yeah. The two of us missed last week, obviously, because we had a bit of
Yeah.
a stressful week with ourselves and stuff like that. My little fella was sick and all that, and you had your thing going on as well. But listen, we had a great interview there on the channel last week with Wayne Barton.
Fantastic, yeah.
Mark and Reese took over the channel for last week and did the interview with Wayne Barton, who is the author of Wayne Rooney's new book. So that was actually a great watch and a great listen.
Yeah,
And
great listen.
fair play to the two boys for getting stuck into that as well. So on this one, we're just going to cover basically the midweek results that happened there during the week. We only had 3 or 4 Premier League games on the weekend as well, so we're just going to cover them really quickly. We're also then going to talk about the title race because they're really heating up. Liverpool got a good win there during the week against Arsenal, so we're going to talk about that as well. Man City didn't play in the weekend because they were in FA Cup action. We're also going to have a little chat about the situation at Chelsea as well. Just going to gloss over that slightly because they've had improved bids today gone in by Mr. Candy. So be interesting to see what happens there as well. We're going to have a quick chat about the Super Leeds marching on together under their new American management. We're going to have a quick chat about that, and then we're going to get stuck into my poxy team, unfortunately. So how bad Everton are. So I'm just going to quickly gloss over last week's results very quickly. So obviously Tottenham had a decent away win after them being kind of up and down over the last couple of months. They had a really good win away from home against Brighton, 2-0 there. As I was talking about there, certainly Liverpool had a very good win there as well against Arsenal. I actually watched that game. Arsenal were actually fairly decent in that game. They look a much better team than they were before. I think the scoreline slightly flat as Liverpool, although their class did shine through in the end, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a huge result for Liverpool. I mean, for Liverpool to go away from home during the week against Arsenal and pick up all 3 points and to keep a clean sheet as well, massive for them. I think they are the team. We're going to talk about the title race now shortly. They are the team with the momentum. So look, that's looking good for Liverpool at the moment. Huge result for my team on the Thursday night against Newcastle. It was a wild game, and what we'll do is we'll get stuck into that towards the end of the podcast. But what a week it's been to be an Everton fan.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
I watched that game, like.
Yeah, it was wild. So we'll get stuck into that towards the end of the podcast as well. Leeds had a humongous result against Wolves. 2-0 down, came back and won 3-2. Heavily helped, I think, by a sending off of Raul Jimenez, and I cannot believe it. I captained Raul Jimenez. So I started off my game week on a Friday with a -4, so that was great. And then big result for Liverpool, for Leeds. Sorry, and we're going to chat about that as well under the new manager Jesse March. And then moving on, Arsenal put their sad midweek result into a positive one with a good 1-0 win away to Aston Villa. Leicester had a good home win against Brentford, and then Tottenham rounded off the Premier League results with a 3-1 win at West Ham, and Son Heung-min got shot by a football. Apparently, that was kicked at him by Kurt Zouma.
I've just seen that earlier, man. Oh my god!
It was pathetic. Like just like for such a good footballer, he's such an idiot. Like
the word "pathetic" sounds so better in an Irish accent. I've never heard that before.
Pathetic, pathetic. Yeah. But So let's start with talking about this title race because it has gotten very interesting. The March international break usually kind of sets you up for the run-in of the Premier League football, because after the March international break, then it's literally the sprint finish. You have, I know with COVID and all this kind of stuff, with games being cancelled and stuff like that, usually teams have about 9, 10, 11 games left, depending on what happens if you're in cup competition.
Yeah.
What way do you think this?
Time, though, isn't it?
I can't seem to call it. We were talking about it last night on another stream as well. We just can't seem to call it. I think I think people are kind of favouring Liverpool at the moment because they have that momentum. But we can't shy away from the fact that Manchester City are Manchester City. Do you think it's all going to come down to that game at the Etihad in a few weeks' time, or what's your feeling on this title race?
My feelings are a disappointment because it's going to be gutting either way, being a United fan, isn't it? I mean, who do you pick? But yeah, I think it probably could come down to that game. But I don't know about yourself, but I think they're both going to drop points, like at some point, and it's just going to be who doesn't drop the most. Like the running, there's a lot of pressure in the running, and although Liverpool probably do have the momentum in the way they're seeing games out and the way they're scoring, yeah, I seen that earlier. I thought you'd like that comment. He's very tetchy, Michael. You've got to go easy on him at the moment.
You know what? I bleed and agree with him, so I'm going to let him away with it. It's grand.
But I think it's a case of I'm just kind of siding with City purely for the fact of they just seem to win games when they need to. Like they can go on a run of winning 8 or 9 games, which is crazy when you've got that amount of pressure. But Liverpool are definitely not going away. They've got some tough games coming up. I mean, we've got to go to Anfield, so that'll be a tough game for Liverpool. Not.
Yeah, right.
And it's a case of like they're going to come up against teams that are battling for their lives as well, sort of thing. So I feel like I probably might be wrong saying that, but I just think they'll drop points. I just drop the most points, and it's if the other team capitalise when the other team drops points. And that was always what it was for me with United and Arsenal and United and Chelsea, like years ago when it was always like, right, we've got to capitalise when they falter sort of thing. And I feel like that's the level that they've both got to now. It's like we just need to keep winning. And it must be like massive pressure going out onto that pitch every week, knowing that if you lose, there's a good chance the other team are going to take over you. And the fact that it's only 1 point now, like Man City have them games in them where they go to Palace and drop points. Do you know what I mean? But I also feel like Liverpool can get caught out as well because everybody just expects them to win. And then they'll drop a silly point like away at West Ham or away at Brighton or just something silly, like where you just don't expect it, like a coupon buster, as we call them, where you think it's an absolute banker. They're both don't. So it'll be interesting, but I kind of hope, not from a neutral perspective, because I can't be a neutral perspective, but it would be good if there was something really important to play for when they both play each other, like if it was like 1 point in it. But I kind of favour City because they've done it consistently for a few years now, where they've just went on a run when it's really mattered the most. Like when they won the title a couple of seasons back, like they were out of it, and then all of a sudden they won, like, I don't know, 15 games in a row, something stupid like that, and then ended up walking away with the title. I think it might have been when United were doing well. Was it last season? It might have been last season where we were top, and then all of a sudden they just come from nowhere and they just were beating everybody. But I think on the eye, Liverpool are probably the team where you're looking at and thinking, I just can't see anybody beating them. The way they play, the quality they have, the attacking options, how solid the goalkeeping situation. And they're going away to the likes of Arsenal, who are a really organised team now. Arteta's got a really exciting team there he's building, and they just brushed them off. Arsenal done well, and I think there was a lot of positives for Arsenal in that game, but it's just the quality aspect, like you said earlier. And remember when we done week 1, and we were talking about the league title, and I said to you, it's just about whoever can stay consistent. And I feel like that's what it's going to come down to, because they've both got the quality. It's about the consistency with the quality, and it's going to be exciting from a neutral perspective. For me, I kind of don't really care, but it's obviously great for us to talk about on the show, but it's quite difficult to talk about as a Man U fan. But it is
and an Everton fan for Liverpool as well, because I just can't listen to them as well. But like, listen, you have to just take your bias out of it and just appreciate the two teams, how good they actually are. Two incredible teams to have in the Premier League, and obviously Sky and BT and all that are going to love the fact that it's getting so close as well with this run of games. And I think Man City are away to Burnley in the next game. I think Liverpool have Watford, and then they play each other in the league. They drew each other in the semi-final of the FA Cup. So I think what's happening there is they play each other in the league, Champions League game midweek, and then they play each other in the cup.
Did they get each other in
So
the FA Cup? Did they?
yeah, they got each other in the
I
FA
haven't
Cup.
seen the
Yeah.
draw. Yeah.
So it's Man City, Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final, and it's Chelsea and bloody Crystal Palace in the other semi-final. So yeah, but yeah, I'm
Eagle-eyed
kind of.
football will be up for that one.
I know he's already in the comments. I was chatting to
Yeah, I
him
see
all
it.
weekend as well, but I'll go the other way then, and I'm gonna say I kind of half fancy Liverpool to win the league. Now, obviously, if both teams, like obviously if both teams win the rest of their games, sorry, if obviously they can't win the rest of the games, but say for example it's a draw at the Etihad and the rest of the teams win their games, then Man City will win the league. So I do think a lot of it is going to come down to this game at the Etihad in a couple of weeks' time.
What kind of game do you think that's going to turn into then? Because I think it could become a bore fest. Do you know what I mean? Where they just stand off each other and just don't want to lose, so to speak. But
Well, I
I
think
can't
that'll
see it
be.
being a shootout.
I can see Man City taking a draw probably because
Yeah.
they know that a draw suits them. Whereas I don't see Liverpool. I don't see Liverpool going to the Etihad and playing for a draw. I can see Liverpool going to the Etihad and like they can basically say to themselves at the moment, like if we win this game, we could win the league. If we win the rest of our games, it's in our hands. At the moment, it's in Man City's hands, and Liverpool have the opportunity. Liverpool then have the opportunity then to basically put it into their hands. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Sorry about this. I've had to get a knock on my door, and I think I have to let my partner in. But 1 second, you walk away there, Jamie. What do you think is that match itself? How do you think it's going to turn out?
I don't know. I feel like this is absolute golden, by the way. I love it, mate.
Yeah.
You've got a person at your door, and I've got a scratching whippet at mine. So I'll not let my guest in because she'll jump up on me straight away.
Yeah,
But,
I left the key in the door.
That's class, man.
That's my fault.
I feel
Sorry,
like, do you know what I think it might come down to as well? And let me know what you think as well. If anybody's in the comments that agrees with me as well, I think it might just come down to pure firepower. And if it does come down to that, like, I just think that lack of a striker at Man City, I know they score loads of goals, don't get me wrong, they've got goals from all over. But you know, that clinical front three, I just feel like if you look at Liverpool's, that even their front five, like they've got Diaz, they've got Jota, well, and I feel like if it comes down to a shootout, so to speak, I think Liverpool probably might win the title purely for the fact of they just score more goals. But I think it's going to be such a big game. I feel like tactically they're going to both have to really work each other out early in that game. And then I'm in agreement with you. I think City probably will be a little bit more comfortable knowing if they can get a draw and play through that. But I just can't see Liverpool allowing it because of the stature of the game, knowing that, right, it's in our hands now. Like what you said was absolutely spot on. I feel like Liverpool will go for it. And it's like, I almost feel like if you put it into a boxing comparison in that game, I feel like Man City are probably going to sort of stand off. Liverpool are going to be like the more pressure fighter, and City will probably try and pick them off. Like more of a counter punching sort of game of football. And I feel like that's how it will play out. And if it does play out that way, when you've got De Bruyne and Mahrez and Bernardo Silva and that just sort of trying to hit on the break, it'll be a real interesting game because like 11 versus 11, they've both got just as much quality as each other. I feel like the final third of the pitch is where that game could be won and lost. Both got fantastic keepers, but I feel like Liverpool's attack is just like it's lethal, and Salah is just in the form of his life, and Mane brings a lot of quality to that team as well. He can score a goal when out of nothing, and I feel like that might just be the difference on the day. But as I say, I could be completely wrong, and City might go out and play fantastic and win comfortably, and vice versa. But I think it's definitely going to be like a very cagey sort of chess match sort of game of football, that one.
Yeah, I think well, like you say earlier on, like if Liverpool go to the Etihad in a few weeks' time and they don't try their best to win the game, they'll only regret it if they end up losing the league by a point or a couple of points. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if they can go out there and if they can beat Man City and basically put it into their own hands, then they're obviously going to try and do that. I don't think Jurgen Klopp is the type of manager to basically play for a draw as well. I think if this game had been maybe before Christmas or just after Christmas, you might have said, yeah, they'll probably take a draw and see how the rest of the season pans out. But after this game, they're only going to have 7 or 8 games to kind of try and hope the other team drops points and try to capitalise. I agree with what you said there that Liverpool have the more firepower. There's no doubt in that. I think Man City like to control the game. They like to get the ball in midfield, pass it around with Rodri, Jack Grealish, Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne. They'd like to kind of control the tempo of the game. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Liverpool. I think Liverpool are going to be very, very hands-on in that game, and it's going to be really, really interesting. I don't see both teams going the full season without dropping points, bar that Man City game. I do think both teams will drop a couple of points. It won't be mental. It'll probably be like maybe a couple of draws here or there. It's gonna be so interesting though. It really, really is. But listen, we'll quickly move on to another team there that has had a rough few weeks, I suppose you could say, in terms of Chelsea Football Club. Obviously, they basically had a couple of weeks ago all of their funds frozen. People were joking, saying how are they going to get to their matches and stuff like that. And Thomas Tuchel was asked in interviews, how are you going to get to your match in midweek against Lille? And he said that, listen, I think we have a plan. If we don't, we'll go by train. If not, we'll go by minibus and I'll drive the bus. We'll be there on Wednesday if we have to be. It wasn't a laughing matter at one stage, even though everyone probably was laughing at Chelsea Football Club. But at one stage, it was a case where they literally couldn't, they probably weren't going to be able to afford to put fuel in the team bus because all of their accounts were frozen. I think the English government are kind of open to the fact now where they have to just allow Abramovich to sell the club. Friday was a deadline just gone for bids to go in. There seems to be a lot of like consortium-led bids gone in. Mr. Candy is kind of leading it. I think he's saying his dad played for Chelsea and stuff like that. He's a Chelsea fan. He wants to kind of bring this consortium in and kind of get. I think it was something he said he wanted to have something like a fan-led consortium as well that goes on and sits on the board as well, and fans have a voice and stuff like that. So I think he's playing up to kind of the fans will want him and his consortium to come in, if anybody. Obviously, the government or the Premier League have to do a fit and proper person's test on all these new owners. They may have dropped the ball there with the new Saudi-led ownership of Newcastle, but listen, we'll let that one slide. But it's looking a bit brighter for Chelsea at the moment. Obviously, they've had two or three wins as well in the meantime. So on the pitch, they seem to be doing everything right. Off the pitch, they've had a really, really rough couple of weeks. There was a lot of talk about if this dragged on, they're not going to be able to buy players, they're not going to be able to recontract players. A lot of Chelsea's backline are out of contract in the next couple of months. And it was getting to a case where, listen, if he's not allowed to sell the club, then what's going to happen to the club? Because you have to let a club operate. So I think they're doing the right thing by letting Abramovich sell the club. And I suppose hopefully for Chelsea fans' perspective that it gets sorted sooner rather than later. What's your opinion? What's your take on the whole situation at Chelsea at the moment?
When it all started breaking, I was actually in London with work, and I was eating around the corner from Stamford Bridge. So when we came back, and me and the fella I was with, we walked around to go and see it because I've never seen Stamford Bridge and it was pitch black, all of it. And I was just a bit like, that's a bit strange. Is the mega store not open? Because it wasn't even that late. It was probably about 6:30-ish. And then obviously, the day after, I didn't think nothing of it. I thought it's a bit strange that the mega store's not open. And then the day after, everything sort of started really heating up, and it started becoming apparent that what was going on, sort of thing, And it must be really difficult from a Chelsea fan perspective because they've had the same owner for years. That's literally put so much funding into the club, and all of a sudden he's completely frozen out, and rightfully so with everything that's going on. But I'm not going to get into that. And then there's that uncertainty. And I was listening to radio stations, even podcasts about it, saying that they could go to the wall. And I thought, there's no way they're going to go to the wall. Like, the only issue is when you've got a asset like that that's worth that much money, you're going to only have a certain person, like clientele, that can afford that club, because of the price of it. And I think Abramovich has put in a lot of money, so he's more than entitled to ask for a big figure. And so I feel like I haven't read up too much about the consortium that you were talking about, but it sounds like that's a more positive one if he has the club in his heart, sort of thing. I think every fan wants that, really. But I feel like sometimes you've got to be careful what you wish for as well, because I think Chelsea are probably that club now that expect a certain type of owner that's going to pump millions and millions in and go out and sign the best players in Europe and stuff. And is that going to be the case anymore? I don't know. We'll just have to wait. I did see Romano tweeting that Barcelona were looking to sign Christensen on a free, so it's obviously is affecting some side of it. There was a rumor he was going to leave anyway, but obviously Azpilicueta and Rudiger are available as well. Rudiger's been linked with every club in Europe, I think. And it's a case of, is that going to sort of affect? And then I read that consortiums are actually contacting agents of players that are out of contract and saying, we want them to stay. So just bear that in mind. And that's part of their sort of negotiation tactic if they get the club, sort of thing. But as a player, I think it would be very worrying with regards to the situation longer term, unless something's in place, which it looks like it's going to be now. But the one thing I would say about it is, like, I think Thomas Tuchel's handled the situation absolutely fantastic. Like, it's very admirable how he's come across considering the situation. I just think he's a breath of fresh air. He's a fantastic manager on the football pitch, but I think the way that he's dealt with it, and the one thing you want to hear from a fan perspective is that someone that's got your back even when you're in your worst situation, and I feel like Tuchel's really took that on board and appreciated that the fans are a bit hurt at the moment, and tried to come across in his press conferences as he's one of them and don't worry, I've got you, sort of thing. And I think that's, I mean, you see some social media, and some stuff was really funny that you've seen. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was a picture of Lukaku pulling the team bus and like stuff like that, and it was funny. But like, you take that away and you think, you know what? How must the Chelsea fans be thinking at the moment? And it's a really difficult situation, and it's got sort of a massive issue like on the back of it as well. And it's just like, as a fan, you just want your club to sort of be in a healthy condition, but it was never going to go to the wall. I don't think the government were always going to have to step in and say, actually, we probably need to allow something to happen here. And it has, but I feel like it's going to stop a lot of foreign ownership in the Premier League going forward. I think that the tests are going to get more rigid. And I was actually saying to friends that you're lucky you've got the Saudis now, because I feel like if this happened post 1-2 months later, like as in where we are now, the Saudis wouldn't get accepted, I don't think, because I think this is going to change English football longer term. And it will definitely have ramifications. And I've just seen Trevor's comment, for God's sake.
It will show Trevor's comment up there. Trevor, fair play to you for dropping in again. A very good evening to Matt, Shelley Smith, and Jamie Kieran, Chippy and McCoy. Good evening to you, Trevor. Thanks for dropping by. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna move on. I'll have one more last point on that Chelsea thing. It's one thing being able to afford Chelsea, but it's another thing being able to bankroll it, because obviously Abramovich bought the club. I think he bought it for, I think it was 300 or 400 million pounds at the time when he bought it. But obviously he was able to actually invest and put money into it. He's put it to where the club is now. But if you're talking maybe 3.54 billion for Chelsea, it's one thing being able to get the funds together in a consortium. But are you going to be able to go out and buy a 90 million pound player? Are you going to be able to go out and buy a 100 million pound centre back? Who knows? We'll see what happens. But what the Chelsea fans wanted, they want a mad owner with loads of money, and they don't know where the money's coming from, or they want an ownership in there who loves the club and is going to steer the club in the right direction. But listen, that's enough about Chelsea. That's enough about Liverpool and Man City. We're going to talk about a certain club here now. We always do tend to pick a club every week and give them a bit of limelight every week, and this week it's going to be Leeds United. Under new management, Bielsa Ball is no more. They've had 4 games, 2 defeats to start off, and they've gotten 2 wins. Um, when Jesse Marsh, American coach, when he first came in, we were kind of expecting a little bit of a managerial bounce, but they actually ended up having 2 defeats in a row. But defensively, they looked a lot more sound, and I think that was the one thing that we spoke about Leeds. They could score 3 or 4 goals, but they could also concede 5 or 6. So I was a bit mad in that terms. But looking the last 2 game weeks they've played, they've had a win against Norwich, a 2-1 win against Norwich, and then a crazy result against Wolves. Before that, they got hockeyed away at home, by Aston Villa 3-0, and they got beaten by Leicester away as well, 1-0. But defensively, they did look a lot better. Huge win against Norwich, obviously, because they were both down at the bottom of the table, and then a crazy win against Wolves. Wolves were 2-0 up at halftime, cruising. Jimenez got sent off for... It was a 50-50 challenge. The keeper was well outside his box. Jimenez had every right to go for the ball. The two of them clashed, and at best and at worst, it was literally a free kick either way. You could have just said free kick either way. Are both players okay to continue? Just get up and get on with the game. But for some reason, they gave Jimenez a second yellow card, red card. And you cannot say it didn't change the game, because if Wolves had 11 men, 2-0 up at halftime with 35 minutes to go, they would have won that game comfortably, I think. That happened. Obviously, Meslier had to go off. The Leeds keeper had to go off as well. He was replaced. But Leeds just went into second gear. I think Leeds actually had to make 4 substitutions in that game. I think Click went off with a concussion sub. I think he went off with, so they had to actually they had Bamford pulled up as well, which was unfortunate for him after coming back. I think he was actually in tears on the bench. And Calvin Phillips and the likes were covering him away from the cameras and stuff like that. He just came back from a really long-term injury. I think that they're picking up a different injury now, which can happen if you haven't played professional football for a couple of months and then you go out and try and play 90 minutes and then you just pull up with a different injury. So that's a shame for Bamford as well. But Leeds ended up coming back and getting the winner in injury time with Luke Ayling. Huge 3 points for them.
Yeah.
What it does for Leeds is it puts them 7 points clear of the relegation zone. Now they've played 3 more games than Everton. They've played 1 more game than Watford, 3 more games than Burnley, and 1 more game than Norwich. So maybe a little bit of a false position, but when you're down the bottom of the table, you have to get points on the board. And in the last 2 games, they've done that. So what's your opinion on Leeds at the moment under the new manager, Jesse Marsh? I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you. On the sideline, he seems to be fairly passionate there as well. He seems to have the players back playing for him. He seems to have shored them up defensively as well. I'm just going to look at their next couple of fixtures as well, just to kind of get a feel of where they're going. They have Southampton at home, then they have Watford away, and then they have Crystal Palace away. So you could say that they could pick up a few more points in those games as well. So what's your opinion on Leeds at the moment, Jamie?
That Watford game's a big game for them too as well. That's going to be a really big game. I was quite surprised when they brought Marsh in. Obviously, it happened quite quickly when everyone realised it just wasn't happening with Bielsa anymore. They were wide open defensively, which you just can't get away with that when you're in a relegation fight. You can't be leaking goals because there's a good chance if you're down there, you're not scoring goals, so you can't. What's he saying? Bamford until he declared for Ireland. Oh well, you'll get over it, Trevor. Eh? But to be fair, I think he probably should have went for Ireland. He would have probably started for Ireland a lot more than he'll probably get his opportunity for England. But anyway, we won't get into that because this is an Irish channel, and I've got to be a nice English man when I'm speaking about Irish on here. But Keane will hook me from the stream quickly.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're down the bottom of the table, it's because you're not scoring goals, and if you're leaking goals left, right, and centre, that can't continue, or you're going down. So they had to make a change. I feel like everyone, including their mum, dad, uncle, granny knew that Bielsa had probably hit a bit of a wall and he didn't really have any more answers. I think as a football fan, everybody loves Bielsa, but it just wasn't happening in that situation with Leeds, that they were fighting sort of a relegation fight and still are. So I think they needed new ideas. They needed some more practicality. And then obviously they went for Jesse Marsh, who was available. He's obviously come through the Red Bull group, done really well at Salzburg, and then obviously got the gig after Leipzig parted companies with Nagelsmann when he went to Bayern Munich. So he's got credibility. RB Leipzig are one of the best ran clubs in Europe, with regards to like recruitment and that progression through a club. And he sort of didn't do that well there. So it's a bit of a strange situation that he's ended up as Leeds manager. But like you said, he didn't have the start he wanted, but he seems to have got some structure to them. He obviously knows how he wants to play the game. I think Ranić as well thinks quite a lot of him. I think they worked together at Salzburg. I think Ranić give him the job actually after he come to America, and he done well over there, working with players like Keita, Mane, going through that system. I don't know if he was there when Mane was there, to be fair, but and he's obviously got the gig at Leeds now, and he's trying to implement that football that he believes in, that he's tried to play at every club. And he's had a massive, that Norwich game was unbelievable when they equalised in the last minute, and then Leeds went and scored, and then they got 3 points at the in the last game as well. The game definitely did change when Raul Jimenez got sent off. I didn't. I'm in agreement with you. It could have went either way, and it definitely changed the game. I think since we've been doing these shows, we've been really buoyant on Wolves, haven't we? And give them a lot of credit for their organisation and stuff. And that kind of went out of the window a little bit against Wolves. But it changes the game. Like Mellier's been really good, a really good goalkeeper since he signed for Leeds. There was changes to both teams, and Leeds just sort of dug in and went for it, and they kind of had no choice. And obviously, they ended up getting the winner with Ayling, and just a fantastic performance. I've got one of my good friends back home is a massive Leeds fan, and I have quite a lot of dialogue with him. And he was obviously ecstatic because that's a huge win, and it's like you're clawing points every single week when you're down there. You'll know with Everton, every game is a huge game, and to get 3 points in a game that realistically they probably would have lost with 11 men on the other opposing team, and now it's turned into 3 points. I feel like Marsh has settled a lot of stuff down. He's obviously changed a little bit. They look like a defensive unit, which they haven't looked like that since they got in the Premier League. It was always like, right, if you're playing Leeds, you're going to score 3 goals, but they might score 4. And I think that's the way they approach that. Whereas I think that since I've seen Marsh go in there, and I haven't watched Leeds look, they do seem like they've got a structure and he knows how he wants to play. And it's just unfortunate to see how they manage without Bamford now, because he's a really important player for them. And it's just a bit of a shame the way his career is going at the moment with injuries. But that's just something they're going to have to negotiate through. And they've got quality Leeds. If they're hard to break down, they've got quality for players that can score goals and win games. And if they can get the likes of Phillips and that back, he's a quality player, He's been out for a long time as well. I don't think they've had a settled back 4 this year. So if they get a little bit of luck with regards to injuries, I feel like they can stay up. I think the only plus for Leeds is they're going to have structure with Jesse Marsh. Whether it works or not, I'm not sure. But I think there's 3 worse teams in the league than them, and I think that will be their saving grace.
Yeah, I think I was talking to a few people there, and we're looking at the bottom of the table and stuff like that. Obviously, I've been interested in it because I'm an Everton fan, and we're going to move on to them now shortly. But apparently, this year is going to be the least amount of points you will need in order to stay in the Premier League. They're talking maybe 33, 34 points, which isn't a lot. And Everton are on 25 at the moment. So going by that logic, Everton only need 2 more wins and 2 more draws, and they should be safe. I don't see Everton getting 2 wins and 2 draws. To be honest with you, they're actually that bad. So at the moment, it's looking like Norwich and Burnley and Watford are in the hot seat there as well to go down. And it's kind of a case where teams above them, are they going to be any worse to drop down into it? Looking at that now, I think Newcastle will be safe. To be honest with you, Brentford seem to be picking up points here and there as well. And so the Leeds, obviously those 6 points. When you're down the bottom, if you can get 2 wins on the bounce, it changes the whole reflection of a table.
I think
And obviously,
Newcastle are a prime example of that, mate. Like
yeah,
in a lot of people's eyes, they were done, and they went on a little run, and now no one's talking about them in that relegation fight. It's like you say, it's a couple of wins, and everything changes.
yeah. I keep saying that Newcastle at the end of the January transfer window had 11 points, and now they're on, what are they on now? 31 points. So they've got 20 points in the last 2 months. Like, just goes to show you how quickly things can change. But yeah, let's talk about Everton.
Are you sure?
I suppose we have to, don't we?
Come on, let's have it, Matt. Come on.
Right. So
Let's
just I'll
talk
say it
Everton.
now. If you're in the comments and you're watching this stream live, like and comment and subscribe to the channel, okay? Leave your comments in there as well because I'm about to get a bit emotional, all right? Obviously, last week we started off, Everton played Wolves. Absolutely pathetic. Got beaten 1-0 by Wolves.
Let
Wolves
me
came
write
to
down
go.
how many times you say pathetic here. 2 secs. I'll just get a
Okay,
pen.
yeah. Okay, I'll get a little pathetic counter in the corner there. So Wolves came to Goodison Park, absolutely ran the show. I think I was talking Neves got the ball in the left back position for Wolves and he ran all the way into Everton's box. And the only reason why he stopped is because he ran into 3 Everton defenders who retreated all the way back into the box. They had so much space in the ball, it was absolutely ridiculous. And that was coming into a week where Everton were playing Wolves on the weekend. I think it was Sunday, and then they had Newcastle there on the Thursday. And I was saying if we can manage to get 6 points in that game, Everton will be fine. And then obviously the Wolves game happened. Moving in then to the Newcastle game at Goodison Park, I think there was a bit of a reaction. Everton didn't necessarily play well. I wouldn't stand here now and say Everton deserved the 3 points whatsoever. Newcastle had the majority of the possession. For me, they were the better team on the ball. They just didn't create any chances for me to say they deserve to win either.
Yeah.
If I had stayed, yeah. Well, it was a poor game in terms of quality end to end. But in terms of fight and aggression on both teams' part, it was great to watch because it was little niggly tackles. It was this, that, and the other, and it was actually a great watch in terms of it was kind of back to the old school game. The referee in the first half let the game flow fairly well. Actually, I thought there was a few times he didn't blow for free kicks and stuff like that. And then in the second half, he was stopping the game every 2 or 3 seconds. Obviously, we had a mental moment a couple of minutes into the second half where the fan decided to run onto the pitch and tie himself to the post. I got a lot of grief on Twitter saying it was me that did it. It wasn't me. But you know what? Obviously, it turned out to be actually in our favor because I was watching this game live. Everton obviously got Alan sent off with 10 minutes to go, which was it was a professional foul. Usually, you see them where a player pulls down a player and it's just given the yellow card. Just get on with the game. It's because he went in with his feet and he chopped the player down. The referee gave a red card, and I got awful stick on Twitter because I was given reasons on Twitter as to why the referee overturned the yellow to a red. If you watch it, he goes in 2 feet off the ground to chop the player down. Now he doesn't go lead with the studs. You could say he doesn't go for the ball. His full intention is to take the player down, commit a professional foul.
I thought it was a sending off. To be honest with you, he knew exactly what he was doing.
He knew exactly what he was doing, and it's a very, very hard. It's a very strong yellow card, but for me, it's not a red card. And to be honest with you, when Everton appealed the red card, it should have been downgraded from 3-match ban to 1-match ban. I don't think it's a 3-match ban for what he did. He didn't go out and try and punch the head off him or try and break his leg or anything like that. He just tried to take the player down, which is a strong yellow card, and they've had to turn it into a red card. It shouldn't be a 3-game ban.
Yeah.
But so
see,
at that point,
you got to admire that to a certain extent as well. Like, I didn't look at that challenge, although from your perspective, you'll see it totally different to me. Like, you've got to admire that from Alan as well, in a weird way. Like, because it's like such a big game, and he's just willing to just leave it all and take a card. I think he probably thought he wouldn't get sent off, which is understandable, but he was willing to, like, for the cause. There was no way that he was allowing that player to go, and there's kind of something weird in that. I know you'll totally disagree because it's your team, but I remember watching a game again, a Bundesliga game, when it happened at Hoffenheim. It went viral. You know, when the defender like completely wiped the player out, saved the penalty, and they ended up getting a win in that game. And he just literally knew he was going off, and he wiped the player clean out. Like, and there's something in that. It's probably not making much sense. You know what I mean, though? Like, where he's willing to just say, actually, I'll take the hit for the team. But at first, because I was like, that's not. He can't be going for that. And then when I seen it again, I thought, oh, that is cynical.
I'd agree with you if he was 10 yards inside his own half, but he was 10 or 15. He was 10 or 15 yards inside the other half. So, like, obviously, St. Maximin is a bullet. We all know he is. How quick he is, but you kind of have to back your 4 defenders and your other midfielder to get back and stop him if there's 60 yards left to run. I understand if it's like 10, 15 yards inside your own half, you make that tackle all day. But we miss him now for the 2 games that are coming up. We have 2 huge games, West Ham away, Burnley at home, I think it is. 2 massive games, and we miss him for that as well. We have a very, very limited midfield as it is. Hopefully Donny van de Beek is back for that game. Not the fact that he's playing very well at the moment, just purely for the fact that we need numbers in midfield, because I don't trust Andre Gomez whatsoever in terms of playing in a 2-man midfield. So if Donny van de Beek is there with the Corey, then you can have Gomez in there, because at least you have 3 in midfield. But like yesterday against Crystal Palace,
what's the crack with Gomez then? Why is he just like way off the boil?
He's just a terrible footballer, man. I
remember seeing him at Benfica, mate, and he looked quality, man. And then when he went to Valencia,
10 years ago, man, 15 years ago, like,
is he just like lost it? Has he?
He's not a Premier League footballer. He would do very well if he went to a team like Sevilla or Benfica or someone like that, where he has time on the ball and he can control pace of play. Andre Gomez, I could count on 2 hands how many games he's played, decent games he's played for Everton, and he's on 100 plus grand a week. And we don't need players like that at the club anymore. I swear to God, like, right, I could go through the whole team now, and I could actually, I'm looking at the squad here now, right? I actually only want to keep about 4 players in the whole squad. The rest of them can all go. They don't want to be there. Frank Lampard came out yesterday in his press conference, and he basically turned around live on telly and said, there's only so much buttering up you can do to these players. We did it for the first few weeks I was here. Now it comes down to it. If you don't have the bollocks to play for this club, then you shouldn't be here. He said it live on TV, like this. But at the same time, I think Frank Lampard is getting things wrong as well in terms of player selection. You have Nathan Patterson there, who's a young right back. Obviously, you don't want to throw him in at the deep end. But on the flip side of that, you're playing a 34-year-old right back who's playing every single game for Everton. Surely you bring Patterson on with 20 minutes to go, or you start Patterson in the game, and if he's not doing well, you take him off 10 minutes in the second half or something like that. It can't get any worse. We're losing games. Like, we lost the Wolves at home. We got battered by Spurs away. We got battered by Crystal Palace yesterday. Like, surely it can't be any worse. You have to throw these young lads in at the deep end. I understand in terms of Michaelenko, because maybe his head isn't in it at the moment with everything that's going on in his homeland.
Yeah,
that's fine. But Patterson's just been called up for the Scottish national team. He'll probably start those 2 games for Scotland, and then he'll come back and sit on the bench for Everton, and Seamus Coleman will play ahead of him. Doesn't really make sense. So that's my only thing with Frank Lampard at the moment. He doesn't seem to be making the right selections. Yesterday he brought on Damari Gray when Townsend had the unfortunate injury. I felt, and I can't believe I'm saying this, he should have brought on Iwobi, because Iwobi had probably one of the games of his life against Newcastle, and then he drops him for Crystal Palace. It doesn't make any sense what he's doing. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm not turning on him before anybody says that, and I'm not saying he should be sacked or anything like that. I'm still on the side where the players are a disgrace. Like, you can go through the whole back line there. Why is John Joe Kenny playing left back when he's a right back?
Couldn't get a game at Celtic, man.
Like John Joe Kenny at the moment, if you look at in terms of talent, he is our third choice right back. Why is he starting left back? We have Godfrey there as well, although he's a centre half. Godfrey is a better left back than John Joe Kenny. He should be playing left back.
He's a good player,
Obviously,
Godfrey.
obviously you have Michaelenko there as well, right? Dominic Calvert-Lewin didn't do anything in the game yesterday. Richarlison was fantastic for the first 20 minutes, and then he just went missing. Demarai Gray came on for Townsend after 20 minutes, didn't affect the game whatsoever. Gomez was brutal. The Curry had one of the worst games of his life for Everton yesterday. And it just, like Frank Lampard, I suppose he probably came across as a bit salty in the comments. He was saying that like the first Palace goal was average, second Palace goal was fluky, the third Palace goal was average. It was a fluke. Fourth Palace goal was average as well. That wasn't a pop at Palace. That was a pop at the Everton players because of how they defended against those goals. Because I think it was a goal that Zaha scored. I think it was the third goal. I think it might have been Olise that took the shot. And I think it flicked up off his right foot. He took a shot with his left foot, and it flicked off his right boot, and it just created a mad spin on the ball. All the Everton players, including the cameraman, to be fair, thought it was going into the stands. So all the Everton players just stopped. It hit the post and ended up dropping to Zaha's feet, and Zaha tapped it in. That was 2-0 with like 35 minutes to go in the game. You're still in the game. You don't switch off. Everton at the moment, man, I swear to God, people are saying it's a good thing they are out of the cup, and it probably is a good thing because let's have it right here. Everton go into the semi-finals of the cup against Chelsea, Man City, or Liverpool. They get hockeyed. I don't care what anybody says. So it probably is a good thing that we now are focusing on. We've 11 games left in the league, and it probably is a good thing that we can focus upon it. The international break is coming at a good time. The international break is coming at a good time for Everton. They seem to be having a bit of a virus going through the squad at the moment. They're saying it's not COVID, but like Donny van de Beek had it, Pickford had it, Asmir Begovic, who had a good game there against Newcastle, he had it as well.
I think it's called bad form, mate, not COVID, you know? I think it's called bad form, that's why. But
yeah, I know,
it's crazy, isn't it? Like, what I just think that this Everton team has no identity, mate. Like, you always knew what you were getting with Everton, like, especially for me growing up, and yourself as well, supporting them. Like, you knew they had a group of English players that they weren't the best footballers, but they like Osman, people like that, Cahill, like Jagielka when he was a bit younger, Lescott. Just they always had a really good British. They've just completely lost their way. And I always used to look at Everton and think they're a good club. They're a nice club. Like, you always like to see Everton do well. They were always my favourite Scouse team, you know, naturally. And they always were always shrewd in the transfer market, like picking up players like Pienaar, picking up players like Cahill, for example, players like that. And I just don't see the recruitment side of Everton's just gone majorly downhill. And it's not the fact that they ain't bought good players. I just think they probably haven't. They've probably done the same as United. They just haven't really bought pairings. And it's just like, right, we'll buy him because he's a good player and we'll try and fit him in. And it's like, when you're in a relegation battle and you need picked up, when everything's going wrong, you bring in Dele Alli. Like, he's not played well for years. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I'm not saying Ali's a bad player, and I generally do hope he turns his career around because he's a quality player. He should be playing for England with the quality that he has. And it's just, he isn't, and we all know why, because he's not been playing well. But it's a case of they just don't seem to have an identity. I mean, that from your perspective, that would be the hardest thing for me if I was an Everton fan, and I have it as well. But we're not talking about my team tonight, and I'm quite enjoying it. So I'm just going to base it off of you. So I just don't see that identity. I kind of see like intelligent signings like Patterson for the longer term, but it's like you say, the only thing I can put it down to listening to you is maybe he's playing Coleman in that because he feels like he can trust him and he's been there and done it sort of thing. But there comes a point where you've got to say, like, actually, I think I'm probably getting this wrong. And I agree with you. There's probably only 5 or 6 players in that squad I would keep. Like, Richarlison is a phenomenal talent, but he just seems lost at Everton. Like,
I think it's so Richarlison. I agree with you there. Like Richarlison, if you put Richarlison into like say Man City's team, he'd be flying. Do you know what I mean? Because he
Yeah,
has quality players around him. The problem with Richarlison is at the moment, he seems to be just running around in circles, doing loads of work and not getting anywhere with it. And I think it's probably down to him not running. He's running into the right channels and all that, but the players around him don't have the quality to get the ball to him. That's the problem. And his head drops very easily. And obviously, the situation that he's in, he doesn't want to be in that situation. He does love Everton Football Club, but he doesn't want to be playing for a team that's 17th. He wants to be challenging for trophies as well. But I think this crop of players, right? This crop of players should be more than capable of getting 10 to 12 points in the last 11 games. And if they don't get 10 to 12 points in the last 11 games, they don't deserve to be in the league. And it's as simple as that.
I think there's just been bad decisions made. Like, you might disagree with me because you've watched them, but like Ancelotti, for me, like, although he's a phenomenal manager and what he done in his career is amazing, but I just didn't see how he fitted into Everton. Like, they didn't need that type of manager at that time. And then he's went and bought his group of players. And then they went for Benitez, which made zero sense to me. That it just didn't fit right. It didn't feel right with the Liverpool connection. I watched Benitez's teams at Newcastle for years at St James's Park, and some of his football was dross. And when I seen Everton wanted him, and then he ended up getting the job, I was just like, who's signed that off? Like, it just makes zero sense.
They don't have anybody on the board.
Nice Keane, isn't it? It's really nice to hear someone else complaining Keane, isn't it?
Yeah, Trevor agrees with Keane as well, and Trevor also says Richarlison's a good player, but he's Shell's level at best. He wouldn't get a game for Shells, man. Just want to go back quickly to Rich put a comment in there. Lampard said we didn't play well. We just totally wrong. Zaha goal was a third goal. That's I know he said that. I think he was just coming across that way, and he did sound salty. I agree with you, but I think his point was more that Palace didn't have to play well to beat Everton. I think is what he was kind of coming across as. He's getting to the point now. He's 8 weeks in the job, and he's getting to the point now where he's actually figured out which players he trusts and which players he doesn't trust. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing if he starts calling players out, because players will just down tools, because there's certain players there who want massive wages, and if Everton do get relegated, they can leave the club for little or nothing because of the whole relegation clause thing they probably have in their contracts. So there's a few players in there that probably saying to themselves,
if they go down, would you want to keep Lampard?
We don't have any other choice. Who are we going to get in? Do you know what I mean? Like I said it before, when we got Lampard in, Lampard wasn't necessarily my choice to bring Everton Football Club forward. He was the best option at the time, because when you keep sacking managers, your managerial pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which point in case means Rafa Benitez, who signed that off, because at the time he was the manager with the most experience for the situation that Everton Football Club were in at the time. And obviously it didn't work. It backfired. It was never going to work.
Rancid decision,
yeah, I know. And then you have to back Lampard. I mean, people might say you mightn't like him and all that. He's passionate. He's not experienced as a manager, but he has to start somewhere. And if he can obviously keep Everton in the league, I think he is the type of manager to turn around to certain players, because he's not that long out of the changing room. I mean, it's only 5 or 6 years ago he was still playing football. So he was a captain of all the teams he played for and stuff like that. There'd be no better man to stand in the dressing room and say, you're not good enough for this football club, you can go find a new team, you're not good enough as well. He can't afford to do that at the moment, because obviously he was brought in with X amount of games to go, and he has to rely on the players that are at the club at the moment. But if Everton do manage to get, say, 10, 12, 13 points in the last game and stay up and finish, I think Everton will finish 17th. I don't see them climbing the table. I see him in the summer with a full pre-season and stuff like that. Him just saying, you're not good enough, good luck. And I can see him promoting a few youth players as well. I can see Nathan Patterson starting from the start of next season. Michaelenko starting from the start of next season as well. I can see Frank Lampard really utilising the loan market, getting players that he wants in as well. He has connections the same way Steven Gerrard has connections at Aston Villa. There's no way Coutinho would be playing for Aston Villa if Steven Gerrard wasn't the manager. So I'm hoping that Frank has that kind of effect for Everton next season if we stay up. I don't know. I genuinely don't know if this current crop of Everton players have the balls to do it, because Burnley have been in this situation before. Watford have been in this situation before. Norwich have been in this situation before. You could say Leeds have. You could say Brentford haven't been in a relegation battle in the Premier League before, but I'm sure they've been down the bottom of the Championship on certain occasions. They know what it's like. They have players in the squad who know what it's like to be in a relegation battle. Everton don't. The likes of Michael Keane, Mason Holgate, they all feel the pressure of, if I make a mistake here, we're in trouble. Every point is valuable. But what annoys me as well, Jamie, at the moment is, I think somebody said it earlier on as well, in terms of Man City going out and not losing games and stuff like that. If you feel as though you're going to get beaten by a team, just try and set up that you don't lose the game. Try not, like, if you can go to, like, if we had gotten a draw at home to Wolves, it wouldn't have been a terrible result. Wolves are a handy enough team.
I think we have lost him. That was a bit of a rant, people. Bless him, wasn't it? I actually feel a bit sorry for him. Going on like that. That sounds... Sorry, I lost you there, Matt.
Oh, do you know what? I got an incoming call there, so I had to hang up there. Sorry about that. So, no, but yeah, so that's basically what I'm trying to get at, is that this current crop of Everton players aren't, basically, they don't have the stones for a relegation battle. Now, like, if you look at, like, the upcoming fixtures and stuff like that, like I said, West Ham away, just take a point there, try and get your point, and then you have Burnley at home. If you can get 3 points, Burnley at home, that's huge. That's 4 points in your next 2 games. That brings Everton on to 29 points, and it also leaves Burnley in the relegation zone, because Burnley have Man City in their next game before they play Everton. So you have to. I know it's. I never wanted to be in this situation where I'm looking at the teams in the relegation zone, hoping they lose games. But Watford, like you say, are playing Liverpool, and Burnley are playing Man City. So I'm hoping, and obviously we'd all be expecting Liverpool and Man City to win those games. So that game for Everton against West Ham is huge. If Everton can somehow get 3 points in that West Ham game, it creates a gap of 8 points from the relegation zone. It's massive. But I don't think there's any Everton fan out there, myself included, that would say Everton are going to even get a draw against that West Ham team, because they can't play away from home. And Everton at the moment are absolutely pathetic. I'm actually getting a headache talking about them. That's how bad it is. I'm actually getting a headache.
Now you know how me and Keane feel every week. You know, yeah. But just when I lost you there, I was just saying, I just waited till you come back, and I said, "Do you know what? I actually feel sorry for you, because it's like looking in the mirror and talking to myself at the moment, listening to you with your team, and it's like my uncle Darren supports Everton actually, and he's in the same boat as you. He just can't see a way forward. But I think the only saving grace again, and as I say, I might be wrong. Don't get everything right. I get most things wrong, to be honest, when it comes to football, but very opinionated as always, but I don't always get it right. But I think what I said with Leeds, I'll stick with it with Everton as well. I think there's probably 3 worst teams, and I think that's probably the only saving grace that they'll get. But I just can't. I don't get it at Everton. Like, I don't know whether it's bad recruitment for a start, but it's like you say, it's like basic tactics and basic mistakes from footballers that just shouldn't happen at that level. And it's the same with United, you know. It's the same things every week, and it's just like, I think they're probably two teams, without going into Man United too much at all. They're both very disfigured squads, and you look at the squads and think they ain't got a balance.
You know, it's a jigsaw. It's a jigsaw with all the missing. Yeah. It's a jigsaw with missing pieces. That's what it is, or different pieces and stuff like that. A jigsaw puzzle. But listen, we could go on all night about Everton, and you know, I'm actually thankful that it's the international break, and Ireland are playing Belgium on Saturday. So looking forward to that game. I'm thankful that it's an international break. Thankful Trevor, that they can't ruin my weekend.
Just to let Trevor know that's not my baby, Trevor. That's Matt's child hearing the dad speak about Everton and start crying in the background. But I ain't got any children, Trevor. I've just got, my baby's got 4 legs and a long nose. So
I must have said punch the head off, Matt, at some stage. Punch the head off and pure Irish thing, Matt. Yeah, Trevor actually threw in about 40 comments. I didn't know which one to actually I never know which one to actually do, but the good one there. There we go. Jamie admitting how he was a Newcastle fan all along when he supported him under Raphael. He thought he was watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All he was short was some pizzas. Trevor, thanks very much, obviously, again, for watching the stream and stuff like that. We didn't talk about Manchester United at all tonight, but there was a reason for that. It's because the
Get in
boys
there,
are
Kino. No man,
the boys are on this channel in an hour's time at 9 o'clock. They're talking all things Manchester United. Kane, the boys are going to be talking all things Manchester United. So make sure at 9 o'clock this time get stuck into that as well. Thanks everybody in the comments for getting stuck in as well. We'll be back next Monday, even though it's international break. We'll be looking forward to the Premier League games that will be coming up. Obviously, we're going to be getting ready for the Premier League run-in, which is going to be massive. But yeah, Jamie, thanks so much for yourself. Have you anything to say before you go off?
No, just the same as you. I really appreciate the comments coming in. Trevor, keeping us entertained as normal. If you ever fancy a Newcastle game, Trevor, just hook me up on Twitter. I only live about 10 minutes away from St. James's Park in the house, mate. So there's your morphia for your Newcastle, eh? We can pop in Shearers beforehand, mate, and have a couple of Guinnesses together if you really want to do it properly, just to add to the Newcastle stuff that you already hold against me anyway. I always appreciate you getting involved, Trevor. I know you give me a bit of stick, mate, but it's all love. Just go and give your baby a cuddle, Matt, because it's obviously a traumatic time at the moment with Sporting Everton with Dad. So, but now, nice to be back. Sorry, obviously we didn't make it last week as well. Thank you for Kino for sorting that out and allowing us to sort of not have to do that. We both had prior commitments, but nice to get back. Nice to see you as always, mate. And big shout to Kino for putting us on today and getting back involved again after obviously not being here last week. So big props and make sure you tune into the United show at 9 o'clock.
Exactly. I'm going to jump off now and have a headache tablet, a couple of paracetamol or something like that, because I'm actually fuming thought about Everton. But I'm going to switch off about Everton. I'm not going to talk about them now for the rest of the week. So listen, guys, thanks so much, everybody who got involved in the comments. Make sure you like and share the stream, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll be back again next Monday at 7 p.m. See you guys. Enjoy your week. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care, people.